Welcome back into episode number 9 of the One More K podcast. My name is Marcus, and today I've got with me, of course, Ned Phillips from Singapore. Good morning, Ned.
Hello, Marcus.
And we have a special guest, Vikas Singh, all the way from Mumbai, India. Good morning, Vikas.
Hi, good morning, Marcus.
How are you doing in Mumbai?
Very good. It's getting warm, but we're still continuing to run.
And does warm also mean less air pollution?
Somehow, in the last 2 months, the pollution has gone down, which I'm very happy about. The construction pace is reducing a bit, and so that's easy for runners now.
Or is there a correlation between an important wedding and the air pollution?
No, the wedding wasn't here, so it was rather pre-wedding celebration that everybody saw it. I guess the wedding is in June or July this year.
And I know this is an ultra running show, but if you ever want to go to an ultra wedding, go to Indian weddings. I have been to weddings in India. Like these are 5. I mean, Camille Herron's running for 6 days. Indian weddings are. I went to one time, Vikas. It was 4 days of drinking and dancing and eating. I was exhausted.
Yeah, you need another week after the wedding, an Indian wedding to recover from the celebration and the exhaustion that it brings. So maybe in my wedding next, you guys can look forward to coming to India.
It's good endurance training for sure. Make an Indian wedding work.
Wonderful,
really yeah. So I guess by now everyone has guessed. Today we have the India Snapshot. Very exciting for us to dig into India, and we have Vikas, who is the CEO and founder of Fitpage, with us to cover throughout the show the Indian perspective. It's a big market. It's a growing market. It's also a small market, we might find out. So we're curious to learn more. But of course, we usually kick off with the weekly news and updates from the world of ultra and endurance running. And Ned already mentioned that a certain lady is doing something fantastic over in California. Camille Herron is breaking record after record. It's pretty unbelievable what's going on there. Just a quick backdrop. In episode 5, we already covered the brand Lululemon, who we were like, it seems like they're getting more into ultra and trail running. And guess what? Now they're hosting this event in conjunction with, of course, International Women's Day, where Lululemon has an event called Further, inviting many women to break records. What's going on there, Ned? Have you been following Camille online?
Of course. I mean, it's funny. I always feel Camille doesn't get or maybe as much love or attention as Courtney. I mean, they're different types of runners. Courtney's clearly the trail, and Camille is more of the road time trial type stuff. Fascinating. At Western States, Camille struggles to break top 10, whereas what she's doing now, you're right. 6-day racing. And Marcus, we've talked about having a history show. I think I'd mentioned on a previous show, 6-day racing was all the rage in the 1880s and 1890s. In New York, it was one of the biggest sports in America. I would love one day to do 6-day racing, but for anybody who doesn't know what 6-day racing is, it's exactly what it says. How far can you go in 6 days? If you sleep, the clock keeps ticking. Normally a 1, 2, 3 mile circuit. I think Camille's is like a 3 mile. So yeah, Camille, as part of Lululemon, is trying to do something incredible. So I have her miles here. First day, 132 miles. Second day, 115 miles. Third day, 94 miles. Fourth day, 89 miles. Fifth day, 72 miles. You can see the trend. So she's at currently, this was 9 hours ago, 505. Marcus, you might have an update. The world record is 644 miles. I know we're in kilometers, but this 6-day racing, being old, thinks in miles, by the incomparable Janos Kouros, the great. But the female record is 549 for America. I think she'll get there. The male record, Joe Fedges, is 606. Marcus, this was 9 hours ago. Do you have any more update on her miles?
Yeah, I just checked like on Twitter just now. So we're recording on Tuesday, the 12th of March, 10 a.m. GMT +7 to be very precise. By now, she has ran more than 511 miles. That's the latest on Twitter, at least. In the meantime, she has broken the records. Now, this is a bit of a long list here. So she has broken the 48-hour American record. She broke the 300 miles world record in 59 hours. She broke the 500-kilometer world record, 72 three-day world record, 600-kilometer world record, and the 400 miles world record in 88 hours. It's pretty incredible. Because how is this possible?
She does not get the same mileage as Courtney gets, or most of other ultra runners get, or the male runners get, to be honest. But she is just this powerhouse who just seems like can do almost anything. For some time, you'll hear that she's at least at global pedestal. We do not hear of her, and then we'll hear that she goes on to break a record that's almost incomprehensible. So I was speaking with her, this friend of mine, during the New Year celebrations. We were traveling, and I said, "Hey, what do you think? What are you thinking of from your training perspective?" She said, "How I wish I can get Camille as my coach." And I was surprised to see that here in India, people were following her this passionately, and she showed me a number of emails she had written to accept her as a coach, and this was so fantastic. And so that just shows the growth of trail running, that I can talk from India's perspective. When I look at the numbers, like Marcus, we were discussing backstage, we were at a running event, and we saw, and we kept hearing through the Twitter post that Camille she's been blazing past almost every record. It was so fascinating to see that, and I guess it would be outstanding to see what comes up in the next few hours as well.
I mean, you just shared so many exciting parts of this statement. It's amazing to hear that Indian runners are connecting with Camille Herron. How do they follow her? On Twitter, Instagram? What's like the medium that this connection is happening?
Right, both Twitter and Instagram, I guess. There are times when she's more popular on Instagram, as well as Runner's World covers some of her works, at least in the past. And through some of these online media channels, the trail runners are able to follow the role models that they look up to. In India, because trail running is fairly new, the runners keep looking forward to getting piece of information, nuggets, through the challenges that these world-class runners take. So online media is what has been fairly popular to track these athletes.
And Marcus, just to jump in, it's interesting. It's great to hear that Camille's popular in India. I imagine she'd be very popular in Japan. You know, they have their warrior culture where you go down almost dying, right? You never stop. And so Camille, I just looking on Facebook now, 53 minutes ago, she's at 517 miles, 5 days, 8 hours. So she's got 16 hours left. And she's last few hours only covering 2 miles an hour. So like it's getting super real now. And this is 6 day racing, right? Can you imagine like 6 days? So yeah. And I think that's why we love someone like Camille. I mean, she's going to crawl to the finish line.
But she has like this amazing attitude. If you follow her on Twitter, which I do, it's also all about burritos and tacos and Courtney style, just relaxed and just enjoying it. Right? It's just amazing to see this joy in her vibe.
And interestingly, just some great posts coming out of this. We know, as you say, Vikas, like social media drives all. She showed a picture of her watch. This was yesterday. Activity time. So it's her, what does she wear? I'm not sure. Is it Coros? Maybe. Activity time, 96 hours, 23 minutes, 59 seconds. Distance, 435 miles. Battery, 56%. That's pretty damn good.
Wow.
So yeah, lots of great posts will come out of this for sure.
I just on this, I can so relate with it. In 2013, I went for a 100-kilometer walk and run. Someone signed me up for this very grueling and hard run and walk. I would think I had never done a 100-kilometer before, and we reached the 83rd kilometer, and my battery died off my Garmin. And when we reached, I could not show it to anyone that I did the 100 kilometers. And so my record has been that it shows the farthest you ever ran was 83 kilometers, right? So what you're saying is so good that now you can keep going for days and the battery is still there.
And you know what they say, Vikas? If it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. So
Exactly.
so technically your 100K didn't happen, even though we
Yeah.
know it did.
Very true.
What's the age of Camille, you guys think? I mean, I know Ned's age, young spirit especially. Vikas, typical young Asian face. You never know, typically in Asia. But what do you guys think is Camille's age?
I'm not going to Wikipedia it. So she's married to her kind of coach. Her husband's quite a bit older, Connor, and she comments she's younger. I'm just going to, I don't know. I'm going to say 43. Vikas?
I couldn't guess, but I would think more like 36, 37.
She is 42 years old. Pretty
Wow.
impressive. Again, proves the point that in ultra distance running, almost age and gender don't really matter too much. And she's the best example of, in her 40s, she's crushing it. Unbelievable.
Well, here's what I find worrying. I'm assuming you guys think 42 is old. From my seat, 42 is young.
Yeah.
I didn't really say that, but maybe I might have implied it. I'm sorry about this, Ned. You are the best example how age doesn't matter. Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next news of the week. We had our UTMB starting list coming out, which is quite exciting. And I am going to put it up on the screen. Given that we had International Women's Day, why don't we start with the female runners who are apparently most likely going to UTMB. Ned, why don't you take us through the top runners going to UTMB and your favorites and any other comments you might have and predictions you might have?
Well, I mean, Marcus, show 9, we've never failed to not mention UTMB, so it sucks us in no matter what. Controversy notwithstanding. I mean, the first comment is who said no, right? Who said I'm not coming? Now, Courtney's not there. Now, why would Courtney go back, right? She won, Western, Hard Rock, and UTMB in 1 year. Like, I mean, what else? She should be going to Raid, or she should be going to Tour de Géance, or she should be going just to show it. I'm going to say that this field looks super open. Like when I look through it, obviously big fan of Esther coming out of Hong Kong, but, and Blandine, who won the CCC, the name I was sad not to see was Sun Maya. Maybe Sun Maya's not ready to step up there. But Ruth Croft has to be the favorite on this list, in my mind. She's one of the greats. Overall, I don't know how many people kind of are not here because they're protesting. Doesn't feel that way, but Ragnar de Batz, Ruth Croft, as you guys know, with my backyard and Barkley, which we're going to talk about later, I would love to see Claire Barnworth do well. She's the amazing backyarder, but I don't think she has the pace to do it. But if I looked at this field, if I had to do 1, 2, 3, I think you have to go Ruth Croft will win, would be my guess. Then Blandine, and then Ragnar de Batz. Unless some surprise new person comes along. But I'm going to say the field isn't as stacked as I thought it would be.
Interesting. Vikas, who are you rooting for this year's UTMB female side?
Maybe I'll flip the question to you because this year I've not been tracking it as much. So I don't have a favorite as yet. But what do you think?
Oh my God! You're telling me you don't track UTMB? That is amazing.
No, I do. I've had UTMB founders as well in the podcast, but not of late. Forgive me, I've not been tracking for the last few weeks for sure. But I had been looking at the controversies that were,
that's for sure.
Tagging it, but not really for right reasons.
No problem. I think I honestly would also be a bit more neutral here, and I wouldn't necessarily pick a favorite. Many of the names are, of course, very familiar. I want to rather talk about the trends as usual. I think I'm quite surprised to only see 2 Chinese in this whole list. So we have Fu Jiaozhang, and at the bottom I saw someone else being picked out, which is Yuan Wu. This might be either a sign of I Run Far, the website here right now, not knowing who the other Chinese are, or it might be the fact that actually not many have signed up. So in general, in this list, we don't see many Asian runners, only 2 Chinese, no others from Asia are covered in iRunFar, which now that motivates me to actually look into the actual list, and I would should do some research on if there are any other female runners that have signed up but are not covered, which would speak that iRunFar would know who is running. Like, we do know that Samaya might run. How Ha from Vietnam is also going. We know that, but it's not covered here. So a rather Western perspective on the starting list, I would say.
I think that is, you're probably right. It might be, and nothing against iRunFar. It is an American publication, but maybe it's they just don't have the same knowledge. But in reality, apart from St. Maya, I don't want to be, but that's probably the only woman on the Asian side who could win. But on the men's side, definitely, it seems a different thing.
You already mentioned the men. Let's go to the men right away. Quickly have a look at the men.
And I'm going to say straight out the gate, right? This protest, we're all going to Gary's race. It did not translate. Hey, much love to UTMB. I don't want to crap on them. Much love. After listening to Paul Huddle's, I don't know, Vikas, if you the UTMB people, and Paul Huddle, who is the head of their trail racing, he was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, Single Dragon. He was like, look, I know there's a lot of negative feeling, but he's like, look, we're just people trying to do our best. We love the sport. Yeah. We're not bad people. We're just, sure, could we have communicated better? Sure. Did this come out how we liked? Of course not. Do we just love the sport and want to do great things? Yes. So, and I think when you look at this start list, if you look at just those top five, I mean, Jim's back. And remember what Jim wrote on Strava when Gary's race went down? He wrote, where shall I run next year? Well, we know where you're running, man. You're running on UTMB. But if you look at that list, Mathieu Blanchard, Pau Capel. I mean, Pau ran away with it a few years ago, off the front. Tom Evans, Germaine Granger, whose girlfriend, Katie Scheid, could be winning it. But then if you look one step down, headliner, look at that first name in the headliner. I mean, you've got to put your money on Jonathan Albon. I think he's stepping up and winning this.
What a list. I am already so excited. I'm going to see myself probably being in Chamonix this year and or if I'm not there, I'm going to just live stream the whole thing the entire time. I mean, this is exciting. I think this is really Dakota Jones going. I mean, all these names going. I think it's an amazing Hannes Namberger, who I also know personally, actually, and some more Chinese as well. Jiang Chengsen, who came only second last year in CCC. Yeah, super exciting. I think it's a great list, and I think I totally agree with you what you just said, Ned. People are coming. The boycott, the protest was a nice little media event, and however, I think not many can ignore this major event at the moment.
You can't ignore it, and I'm going to give you one outsider. So when this guy wins it, we will tune back to episode 9 and say, and I only learned this because I listened to Debo's free trial, but Ben Demon, this guy called Ben Demon, he's in the list. I listened to him. Oh my God, this guy's a crusher. Like this guy's going to put his body on the line for this race. I mean, he lives in Andorra. He knows the European mountains. Ben Demon. He's the top 3 outside bet.
Vikas, when do you think we're going to see a top 10 finisher at UTMB from India?
I think we won't be surprised to see, at least in the next 3 to 4 years, seeing a couple of people who will put a good show. I can't say whether it will be in top 10 or not, but there are good, hardworking, honest people who are out there, who are training, and we see huge potential. They being there pretty soon. If we look at not UTMB, but if you look at Comrades, for example, last year we had 403 people that went from India, and this year, as we speak, if I'm not wrong, more than 500 have already registered. This last Sunday, in near Mumbai, a bunch of runners, at least about 70 of them, were doing that long run to go to Comrades. So we see something like this is picking up, and it will gradually move to something like UTMB for sure. I know personally at least of 3 runners who are training in the mountains for the last few years, and pretty good runners. And so I won't be surprised if they are there and putting a good show in 2 to 3 years to come.
Let's take one step back. What is the history of running in India? When did it start? How did it start? What's been going on the last years, decades?
It has emotion, it has economics, it has survival, at the very helm of it, and we should go back to see that and understand that a bit more. India is a country. India is a country of people who have great aspiration to do something better than what their parents did. India is also a country where two-thirds of population lives in villages. Most of us either are first generation professionals or first generation entrepreneurs. Most of us, I'm talking about. And when we grow in the villages, higher chances that you are growing against financial adversity, you're growing against some social stigma, at least for a couple of decades ago, I'm talking about. And what happens is anything, almost anything that you do, and most of these are joint families, almost anything that you do are either decided by your parents or you decide on your own that I am going to break free from here. In India, people started to pick up running at early stage because one of the quickest ways to get employment was to go to armed forces. And during its peak, you will be surprised to know 43 million people across the country throughout the year must have trained for a 1 mile run, because that's 1 mile run is the test that you have to go through before you get selected to the army or to most of the police forces. That's the number I'm talking about. And I remember when I was a kid, we would have these, they used to call it bharti. Bharti is nothing but a congregation, a bunch of youngsters coming together to do their 1 mile test. And this bharti will be more like a fair, 300,000 to 500,000 people coming together at any one venue on one particular day, and they are taking 4 rounds of the 400-meter mud track. India has the largest running group in the world. That is these runners coming together for a common cause, that is to get a job. And all of these kids will be 16, 17 years old, right? And they have to run a mile in less than 5:30 to qualify, and in about 5 minutes, if they want to get, I'm forgetting the exact number, but in about 5 minutes to get the full mark in the physical test of running. So you can understand what these guys are doing. They're putting everything they've got, because the only thing that differentiates between them and a bright future is that finish line, if they reach that finish line within the time that's been given. This is how, in my opinion, running started at mass level. Now, these are the runners. Once they are selected to the army or any other police forces or security forces, some of them form part of the team that will go on to compete at professional level, which is very different than what you would see in Western countries. In the schools and colleges, you would not see as much of competitive running, at least the middle to long distance. It rather comes, most of the professional athletes and elites you will see are coming from either armed forces, or they are the ones who could not get to the armed forces, but they still continue to run, and they are making a living by going to smaller races and getting some money as a part of it. So it grew this way. But now, if you think of the results of these armed forces, what happens is millions of people are still left out who have not finished the finish line in that kind of time, as well as people who could not even attend to it. So what happens is, by the time they turn 18, 19, 20, or say early 20s, they are not eligible anymore to go to armed forces. And what happens is, now they do not have motivation to continue with that running. And that's how, in my belief, they fall off the cliff. They do not continue running because no more related to the employment that they would be getting. I think that's one of the reasons why running did not grow in the way it should have grown here in India. But it picks up, it gets popular among people, especially villagers. Someone like me, I grew up in a village, and I remember waking up and only running as fast as possible for a few hundred meters, and then stopping and running again. And this is what we did for so many years. So running on one hand has grown in India this way, and now as the privatization has increased significantly in India. India has grown as a country that people aspire to be a part of in one way or another. You will see the other type of runners, which most of us relate with, that are recreational, amateur, midlife crisis type of runners like me, for example, who pick up running and then stay at it for a long period of time. This number has been the number that has been getting the limelight it should be getting. But in my opinion, running at the very base exists in the villages still. And those numbers are far more and far superior than what we do as recreational amateur runners as of now.
Interesting. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing those very interesting local cultural insights about how much the army has actually a role to play, and also is a motivational factor for I guess boys to get out and run fast. That could mean that many people are better at fast running, because if everyone trains for 1 mile, people have been training for a mile, and that's the majority of runners. So not so many yet in the long distances. Can you give us maybe an idea of the overall numbers of different distances?
The 1 mile runners have been taking the approach of running as fast as possible to cross the finish line of 1 mile, so that they can get a job. But like the other parallel we talked about are the runners who take up the endurance sport either as passion or professionally or as semi-elites. This clan has been growing particularly in the last 20 years. Before that, we did have a few races that used to host marathon. Like I said, the first marathoner from India was more than 115 years ago. Um, and he ran a marathon in Pune. And that is where even currently the oldest marathon event around 2004 and 5, when Mumbai Marathon started, the promoters did a fantastic job of traveling the world, seeing seeing what the world class races do, and try to implement that here in India. And I think to give credit to Procam, the running event company, Vivek and his brother Anil, they are the ones who brought running at mass scale in India. It started from there, and then over a period of time started to grow. This I'm talking about more at a recreational level, because corporates were getting involved, the charities were getting involved, we were running for a cause, etc. At professional level, if you see, the India marathon record is still more than 40 years old. Shivnath Singh, who ran in the 70s, a 2 hour 12, has not been broken as yet. And even today, the top five runners will be anywhere between 215 to 218. So that's the difference even today. And so if you ask me, the professional running at the peak has not grown significantly. Now, we saw some blips of professional running getting faster. For example, a couple of years ago, we saw one of the runners, Avinash Sable, he reaching the 1 hour mark in the half marathon, and very quickly we got very hopeful that he is the one who's going to break the marathon record as well. But he has not moved to marathoning professionally as yet. He's continuing to focus on steeplechase, which happens to be his sweet spot, and hopefully you'll see him performing at the very best in the Olympics as well. So like I said, in 2004 onwards, and in the last 20 years, it has grown significantly here in India. But still, if we put in numbers terms, at least in the largest marathon, which was Mumbai, back in 2004, you will have less than 500 people who will be doing marathon. But going from there to, say, earlier this year, we had more than 10,000 runners in the marathon category who ran, and total of 56,000 finishers, starting from dream run all the way to marathon. Since 2004, it was Mumbai Marathon and a few other races that were growing. To today, you will find that almost every weekend in every metro city, you will have one or more event when weather allows for a run to happen, for example. Of course, rains and heat becomes unbearable in some of the cities that you have traveled, so you'll know a lot. But other than that, you will see Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Delhi. You will see every weekend more than one race, almost every weekend more than one race happening. And from it being less than 500 people in the marathon, today, in my opinion, and from the numbers that we see, is the number of finishers annually in the marathon category will be anywhere between 60 to 75,000 people. So while the marathon has not grown as much, you will see that the running in general has grown significantly. And so beginners are picking up a lot. We see COVID, one of the possibly the only good thing that has done is it has forced people to take up cardiovascular fitness, and they have started to walk, cycle, or run. And that we are seeing significantly in our weekly group runs. We are seeing in running events the participation that's been increasing exponentially, at least in the
Yeah.
shorter distances. So that's where the longer distance running has been in India.
And long distance, you right now say 42 kilometers, like a marathon. Like, how many ultra distance races are there now? And where are they? And who are they?
Sure. You can already imagine if the marathon is at this small number, you can imagine where the ultra running will be. In the world major marathons, average participation from India is generally about 300 to 350, 400 people per race. Um, is what you will find, which used to be in two digits at the very best a few years ago. So we saw that has been growing, but we were surprised to see that more than 400 people ran Comrades last year, for example. If it becomes popular in the country because of certain um, focus by the local influencers in running or focus by the race, then India has the population, India has the people who want to be a part of it, who want to go and participate. So Comrades is what people associate with closest internationally in terms of ultra marathon that they can go and participate in. Here in India, we started to see a number of races that started to come. These races again are not volume based or focused because the numbers are still fairly limited, and also financially it does not become very viable in the country to host these ultra races. And because the kind of time and effort that it requires, it is non-sustainable if people look at it from a business perspective, at least the organizers. And over a period of time, I'm sure even though they start with great enthusiasm, they need to look at viability of it, that it is self-sustaining. Ticket prices are fairly cheap, and because of that, Indian running mentality is such that they should get a discount almost everywhere. So the moment you, even for an ultra distance, the moment you put anything above $30-40, people will start to raise eyebrows that, hey, what's happening, right? Why are you charging me this much money, etc., etc. So you will see that's possibly one of the other reasons why ultra running is not growing, but a bunch of good runners have come together and they are putting good shows in different parts of India where they are hosting these races. For example, in and around Mumbai, around the trails and smaller mountains, there are now races that have started to happen. You will see races happening in the Deccan region. You'll see a few very tough and good races happening in and around Ladakh. So at very high altitude and very difficult to finish. Acclimation has been an issue because you need to get to about 7,000 feet or more, if I'm not wrong, where you need to acclimatize before you start to run. So the Silk Route has been a run that's almost like a mecca where people want to go and test themselves if they can go and run. Otherwise, there are multiple distances within the race that people go and participate. Down south, we have a few races that have come up. These will generally be between 50 to 100 kilometers that are more popular. Even they to increase participation, they'll include 25 kilometers as part of it as well. So these are few races, but for all these races put together, you will still find less than 5,000 people in the entire country in any very good year. And honestly, this I'm saying more anecdotally, and I may be very, very wrong. The number could even be well below 2,000, but I have not seen that number as yet, or at least I have not tracked in the last 1 year or so.
So you being having a background at least in business with the financial sector, you're telling me right now you would not focus on business ideas for ultra runners. You'd focus on the recreational 3, 5, 10 kilometer runners.
I would say regretfully, yes. And here, by the way, I'm amazed to see and appalled to see as well that there are almost every runner who even does a 3K, they come back and say they finished a marathon. And then they will say, we finished a 3K marathon. So that itself is an achievement for them. And I think any step that's taken forward towards getting fitter is the right step. And if we can support in any way, it makes sense. Ultra running is not for normal people. Sorry, Ned. It is not for normal.
But your point is really, and it's great to hear all this about India, and I have a couple of questions, but is 3K a marathon? No. But if somebody says, I did a 3K marathon, and it encourages them to do more or someone else to do it, let's cheer it on, right? It's easy to be elitist, to be, no. It's when Ironman, and I used to do this, I was really into Ironman, and then somebody said, oh, I did an Ironman. Which one? Oh, yeah, we did a 70.3. I'm like, dude, that's not an Ironman, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not. And then you get people do a sprint triathlon. I'm like, yeah, I did Ironman. I'm like, no. But then you realize, no, you should encourage people, right? Like, we need the sport to grow. People only become ultra weirdos, as you said correctly, Vikas, not normal, because they did a 3K, then a 5K, then a 10, then a half, then a marathon, and then onward. So it's great to see that we have people getting out there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I remember last year I wrote a small one line saying, fake it until you make it. And the context of that was the 3K, 5K, etc. as marathons. There's nothing wrong in it. Like what you said, Ned, if it motivates people, if it brings smile to them, maybe they just don't know it should be called marathon or not called, right? Why to not promote it? Why to dissuade them from continuing to be on that path to do the 42 kilometers marathon?
Exactly. I saw somebody who was like, they were thinking about this. If I can do a forward roll on the ground, so if I can get on the ground and tuck my head in and roll on the ground, am I a gymnast? Technically, no.
Yeah.
But am I on the path to maybe becoming a gymnast? Yeah. Maybe. And I like that idea. But to your point, a couple of those figures that you said, 5:30 or 5 minutes for a mile. I mean, that's no joke.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus was an 8. Marcus could have done it in his prime because he was a rapid young man. But for a lot of people, 5:30s or 5s. Yeah. I mean, hey, look, I was a okay runner, 18-minute 5K guy a while ago, and even 5 minutes was rapid. But I think the really interesting point is that 2:12, like as we know, 2 hours, 12 minutes for a marathon is not getting you anywhere in a major marathon today.
Yeah.
But the only way to change that is to get people coming through from 3Ks, 5Ks. It's going to take a long time to have people from India running, in the low 205s, 204s. I mean, Tokyo was won last weekend in 202. And as we know, 212 to 202 is a massive.
Yeah.
But it will come, right? It will come as more people run.
No, I agree. And as I looked deeper when I was at Goldman Sachs and later in my previous firm when I worked with the media company, we saw that there are a few other reasons that need to be addressed. Training is the easiest part, in my opinion. You can always provide a training plan that will work for most people, etc. But there is something that needed to be changed at the very base. That is one. Once they run for this much, because fairly taxing being able to run 150 kilometers a week for years to be able to train, where will they get to? Will they get compensated for it in one way or another? That was the biggest problem to solve for. And then second thing was, is that really helping them get something at a more sustainable level in future? And that's why we saw the government coming forward helping the athletes who are doing good at state and national level. And Khelo India, one of the initiatives by the government, has been so fantastic, where um, people now are eligible for certain priorities at different places, which was not the case earlier. The sportsmen are getting jobs at different places, etc. So that's fairly helpful. But what I'm seeing personally is that once they get a job, they get complacent. They're like, hey, why I need to run fast now? Now I have a job. I'll rather focus at that, right? So what we started to try and do was in 2018, um, we were like, can we create a race where we only promote Indian running, and we do not allow for any non-Indian runners to come, and put the prize money similar to that of an international race, for example. So 2018, we started a half marathon, and there we said we are going to give a prize money that's fairly competitive from India's standard, like a couple of $1,000s per person. But we did not only stay at top three, top five. We went for top 21 for half marathon, top 10 in 10K, top five in 5K. And today, if you see, it's been 5 years of that running event. We have a 103 as a half marathon timing. We have 30 minutes, 12 seconds as a 10K timing. And we write a letter to every district in the country and ask them to send athletes that they know who could come and run. So I think it needs to be done something at the base level to help support these guys over a long period of time.
And I think that is great. Like you, Vikas, you know, I love this phrase, never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has, right? That's some like famous, I think it's Mary Angelou or whoever it was, you know, this idea that it does take, and I don't know if you've seen in the UK, you know, I'm 56. When I was young, distance running in the UK, Steve Ovett, Seb Coe, Cram, we were huge, but it died. But recently, about 7, 8 years ago, this guy created an event called Night of the 10,000 PBs. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes.
And, you know, he created this festival, and he brought people and, you know, had people inside the track cheering, and a bit like you're doing, right? You're going around the country promoting, and people will come, and 103, which is great, will become more normal. And people go 102. And, you know, that's what it needs, you know, committed people like yourself in a country. Let's face it. I mean, you are now officially living in the land of the most populated country on earth, more than China now. So India is now technically more than China, and clearly a huge number of talented people to come out from there. But you're right. Look, one of the problems is, let's face it, if you had a choice financially to do cricket or running, you do cricket every time, right? It's just in India. Like that's just a smarter choice. But money will come. You know, money does have to come, and it will grow. It's great to see.
True. And the night of 10,000 PBs was the event based on which we started an event in India, in Mumbai, called Fitpage Miler, which is it happens Saturday evening in the floodlight, where we invite people to come from all walks of lives, and they run 4 loops of the track. So you're absolutely right. Last month we did something called Chandigarh Fast Marathon, which was title sponsored by Under Armour, which is only by selection, and we called it a BQ race. And average finish time of the entire race was 3 hours 33 minutes. For the marathon, and we had 37 people qualifying for Boston Marathon. So yeah, it's getting there for sure.
I mean, just also given how many amazing mountains you have in the north. I mean, the Himalayas are right up there. I mean, right up there is a big country, but I would love to see training camps being based there. You know, when you see the triathlon Ironman training camp in Phuket, what had happened to the whole scene in Southeast Asia there. Everyone now is going to Phuket to train for the Ironman. You can argue something similar should happen in India, given it's accessible to everyone in the world, unlike China, where it's a bit more difficult. So, yeah, I would love to see more activity also in the north of India, whether it's tourism or athletes, to just spend more time trail running. Or, of course, sourcing talent. I'm sure there are thousands of kids in these villages who are the fittest in the world for mountain climbing and running.
Some of the runners have moved up to the mountains in North India to train, and a couple of runners that we were discussing about earlier, they are training for ultra distances, being based in Shimla or nearby areas, which are conducive for these kind of running. The camps are being discussed as we speak. In fact, a bunch of coaches are discussing about it. In south of India, there are similar elevations that exist, and national camp now exists at Uti, and it's held regularly. Some of us we are planning to do on our own what can be done. So you're right, in the next 12 to 18 months you will see a few camps coming up fairly quickly for sure.
I just guessed that. I didn't know it happened. It's happening.
We are thinking alike. That means we are thinking something right.
Yeah, there's this whole business theme of this podcast. But quickly wrapping it up in India, I mean, the energy is amazing. Everyone, all of my friends who go to India, whether they're Indians or non-Indians, they always say the energy is just the most exhilarating in the world. What are the trends, just broadly speaking, or what do you hope for this country in the next 5 to 10 years to happen in terms of running?
I would talk about at two levels. One, at professional level, we definitely want to see ourselves competing again in the Olympics, in the marathon, because now qualifying for that itself is a distant dream. 2:8:10 is just crazy to be able to even get selected. And I think there are a few really good runners who can get there. There are a couple of private companies who are helping at the very significant level to help promote that. Day before yesterday in Orissa, there was an indoor track that was inaugurated, which is the largest in Asia Pacific. I'll send you a link to it. And so there are government and private companies coming together to help support it at that level as well. So you will see short to mid distances we getting significantly better in the next 4 to 5 years. In long distances, as the name suggests as well, it's going to take longer. I think in 2 Olympics down, we should see good participation in the marathon category from India. But one other hope, and I think that's a lot more positive than for men, is the women's category. We are seeing a lot better women runners. They are more resilient. They are getting faster. I think, in my personal opinion, they have a lot more determination to be able to do better than the male runners. I'll not be surprised to see something very good coming out from the women's category in the professional running. Now, at the recreational level, this 3.2 million people will hit 10 million in no time with the way it's growing. And it could just be 3 years. We are growing at 100% year on year, I meant. And it will continue to be this way at least for next few years, I guess. And so, yeah, once we get to 10 million, we will hope for bigger. But with the way the numbers are, people are wanting to get out, people are wanting to get fitter. The roads are getting better, and I see it's only a matter of time. We'll be there where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in India in 1991 for a year, and it is the most amazing country. 33 years later, India is unrecognizable, as you know, Vikas. It is, the economic revolution that has happened there is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing that I think for running, you can only do running if you're economically well off, right? If you are on the poverty line, you're not running, you're working, right? Yeah. Now, India has elevated an enormous number of people to be economically able to run. That's amazing.
Yeah.
The downside of having money is you eat American crap food, because what do you aspire to? You aspire to McDonald's and crap, right? And I like it too, right? So I'm not against it either. What happens when you eat McDonald's? You get unfit and you maybe get a little bit more, bigger than you hoped. So what do? You decide to go running. So it's this interesting cycle that you economically raise yourself so you can run. When you can run, you have enough money, you eat crap, which therefore makes you want to run, and I think India is now in this, again, like a lot of Asian nations, that this economic miracle over the last multi-decades is something that will help. I think the one other thing is money. We need money into the sport because, let's face it, it's still not a sport that people can make money in. And obviously, in Asia, families wish their kids to make money. So I think it's a combination of things, but for sure, I think in 2 or 3 Olympics times. Now, will somebody get down to 2:02, 2:03 to win a major marathon? It's a big step. But, let's take baby steps. top 10, top 20.
Thank you so much, Vikas, for your insights. It's amazing to hear what's going on in India. We are definitely going to track the developments there more and can't wait to hear more updates from this very fast growing market. I'm sure you have so much more to talk about, given there's so much more happening in India, but we'll get you back on the show with more news soon. Good luck with Fitpage as well, but I feel like you're in the right spot in what you're doing. And yeah, it's great to get to know the overview for now of India.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fantastic to see with the way the country is growing, and that was one of the reasons why we started to do this full time, and you could see the passion that all of us have together. Even in the growth, I meant ARR when I spoke about how the country is growing on year, so you can see how much of business is in our mind. But more importantly, it's about the inspiration running is bringing to the country, and I hope to be able to continue to be able to contribute. And Marcus, you and Ned are doing fantastic work with Lecka. Tried your products, and these are fantastic, and I hope these get more popular in India over time.
That is unpaid product placement right here, but thank you for mentioning it, because I appreciate it. We are passionate in many different ways, and now we're handing it over to Ned, who has a passion also for the Barclay Marathon, who is about to start. His life will change the next few days. He will be on his Twitter stream pretty much all the time to follow the loops. Ned, take it away with your drop number 9.
Well, before I get into reading it out, as you guys know, I read it out. Not everybody knows what Barclay is, right? For those of you who don't, I'll give you a 1-minute overview. For those of you who do, bear with me. So Barclay Marathon is a 100-mile approximately race. It is run by Lazarus Lake. I think you know by now he's my hero. I'm a fanboy. He's a race director that thinks about this. You can't find your limit if you finish. So this is really at the far end of ultra. If you finish, you haven't found your limit. So he creates races that, you can't really finish. His original race was Barclay. Barclay, as mentioned, is in the loops of a Tennessee forest. Why Tennessee? So it has a fairly grim history. Martin Luther King, who was assassinated, the guy that assassinated him, John Earl Ray, was put into Brushy State Penitentiary in the Frozen Head State Park in Tennessee. And he broke out. And in 60 hours, he only made it 8 miles through the woods because they were so deep and entangled. And Lazarus Lake, who was a young guy there, his real name is Gary Cantrell, who was into ultra back in the 80s, said, 8 miles in 60 hours? I could run 100 miles in that time. And there was born the Barclay. And it has many weird and wonderful things. For those of you who want to know more about it, watch a documentary on Netflix called The Race That Eats Its Young. It's quite wonderful. But basically, only 40 people get to enter every year. There is no website, so you can't find a website. I don't know how to enter. I've been trying to find out. It's a secret how to enter. If you can figure that out, you can maybe enter. You have to send an essay to Laz. But when, how, why, where, what, I don't know. So it is a cult race. And as you'll hear in my drop, for any race that says it's the toughest race on the planet, it isn't. This is. And the numbers prove it. So the reason we're excited now is we don't know when it starts. It's in the next few days. The drums are banging. And when it starts, and then I'll read my drop. On the day it starts, all 40 competitors gather in this Frozen Head State Park. And at midnight, they go to bed. And the race will start sometime in the next 12 hours. We don't know when. And at a time chosen by Lazarus Lake, he comes out of his tent, blows his conch, his shell, a bit like Lord of the Flies with the conch, and blows his shell. And they have 1 hour to get ready and take off. Oh, in the 38 years of the race, only 17 people have ever finished. I'm going to say no one will finish this year because last year 3 people finished and Laz was upset. It was too easy. So it's about to start. It could be starting now. I'm chatting it. And the reason it's a Twitter feed, as you'll hear, the only news is a man called Keith Dunn. So follow him on Twitter, D-U-N-N-E, Keith Dunn. And he tweets. All right, let's go. This is for you, Laz. It's time. OMG. Cannot be more excited. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, who knows? But it is any day now. But Laz knows, only he and the 40 who are racing. But only now Laz knows the exact time when the conch is blown. 2:31 a.m., 5:03 a.m., and then 1 hour to go before Laz lights his cigarette. And that's how they start, when Laz lights his cigarettes, and off they go. It is Barkley, LFG. Okay, I'll stay calm for a minute and I will explain Barkley. 60-hour race, 100 miles, Tennessee, 20,000 meters of elevation. Off trail, off path, off kilter, off grid, off everything. No GPS, no markers, only books. Books hidden in the forest, that's how it works. Each loop is 20 miles-ish. On the way around, there are 13 books. When you find a book, you have to rip the page of the book out of your race number and bring it back to Laz at the end of the loop. 60 hours, 5 loops, average of 12 hours per loop. 12 hours for 20 miles. Easy, right? Nah. Less than half of the 40 starters finish the first loop. 3 loops is a fun run. Only 3 people or 4 maybe have fun. Normally, nobody finishes. In total, since the race started, 17 people have finished. 17, that's it. It's got a tougher success race than Everest or K2. When a race says, we're the toughest race on the planet, it isn't. This is, full stop. There is no live stream, no video, only the occasional cryptic Twitter update from an old man called Keith Dunn. Follow him, not Mr. Beast. Yes, it's more exciting than Mr. Beast. Waiting for a random tweet from an old dude in a forest to see who isn't running anymore, who is done, who has been lazed. 3 years ago, the great Carl Sabe was found staring into a rubbish bin by a local sheriff in the wrong town, far away, and brought back to Laz. He was lazed. This year, John Kelly goes for his 3rd finish. That's all we know. Who else is there? I don't know. But any day now, any minute now, 40 of the most epic adventurers will head into the woods. They will all come out, almost all broken, but broken with joy, with spirit, with stories that last. And when they think of Barkley, they will think of the yellow gate. A simple yellow gate that is the start, finish, middle, and mirror of this race. Touch the yellow gate 5 times, and you are superhuman. No, you are beyond human. You are, you know what? You're one of only 17 humans on this planet who have completed that feat. Imagine that, one of 17. Actually, make it 18. Laz. He's an honorary member too in my books. Okay, enough of this nonsense. Let's stop and stare at Twitter for a tweet that someone has dropped out any minute now. Ned.
Thanks, Ned. That's exciting. I don't envy your wife when you're going to stare at Twitter.
It's so exciting. Oh my God.
Great.
Barkley.
I just wanted to let you know, Ned, that this morning I had a bit of a rough start to the day, and I had one of your drops on my phone, and it actually got me up, and I went for a run. So,
yay!
So they are working at least on me. I don't know about the others out there, but it is always Ned's voice that is pushing me to just do one more step. Yeah.
One more step.
One more K, as the podcast is called. Anyway, thank you so much for both of you for joining us today. Episode 9 is in the books. Excited to hear more about India. Thank you for the Barkley drop. We'll speak soon. Speak next week, Ned. And Vikas, best of luck. We'll be in touch as well very soon, I have a feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas, for being on the show. We appreciate it.